came to a small Mediterranean coastal town at the end of the season to shoot a short film about abandoned hotels and old industrial zones. The sea was already heavy. Humidity hung in the stairwells. Cheap highway motels took cash and didn't ask for passports. I rented a room from a landlady who smelled of lemon soap and worry. That night, a smell woke me up. Not sewage and not the port. A sweet, fatty, dead stench, like a carcass forgotten in the heat. I went down to the beach. On the dark sand, bare footprints, deep, as if someone very heavy had walked there. The tracks led straight into the water, and there were none coming back. The sand around the prints was darker, like oil had spilled there, and flies circled over the spot despite the wind. I filmed everything on my phone and pressed my ear close. The water wheezed, like someone coughing beneath the surface. A bubble rose, burst, and the smell hit so hard I nearly retched. Something gray-pink bobbed on the swell. Not seaweed. Meat. Pork trimmings. If you've ever been to a slaughterhouse, you won't mistake it. In the morning, the footage was corrupted. The image tore in green stripes, and on the audio there was only a strangled, "I haven't paid." I decided to ask the locals. In the corner tea shop, the old man pouring my glass wouldn't even let me finish.
You mean the meat smell? Then you're asking about Nikolai.
What I heard next is what they call a modern legend. I cross-checked it with a construction guard, a boatman, and the same landlady. Details shift, but the backbone is always the same. Once, before the sea, Nikolai lived in a remote village where even the dogs don't bark at night. He worked at a pig farm. Stench, filth, moonshine. People say of such men, born in rot, and to rot he'll return. One late autumn evening in thick fog, he was heading home across the marsh. Where the road split into 3 paths, there stood a woman in a black headscarf. No face, no age, only a shadow.
Where are you hurrying, Nikolai?
To wealth.
She held out her hand. On her palm lay a dried piece of pork.
Take it. Be my husband, and you'll get everything you want. But remember, flesh for flesh, soul for soul.
He agreed. They were wed in an abandoned chapel under pouring rain. The candles were black, made of lard, and her kiss was cold as a corpse's.
You are mine now. Do not betray me, ever,
she said. By morning, the farm's owner was dead. A month later, the farm was Nikolai's. A year later, a letter arrived. They were calling him to another country, to the sea, to a big construction project. He sold everything and left for the Mediterranean, where the air smells of salt and oranges. There, he became a director. His photo ran in the papers. Money flowed like a river. Cars, tailored suits, dinners on yachts. Now they knew him as Nikolai Bey. The higher he rose, the worse he became. He fired people for laughs, crushed lives for pleasure. 2 of his cronies, subordinates, trailed him. One with last night still swimming in his eyes. The other lived on the pause before applause. Only the applause never came. He turned the office into a round-the-clock binge and a gambler's den, the likes of which that quiet seaside town had never seen. The locals sighed and prayed for Allah to put an end to the disgrace.
On my own law now?
He liked to repeat. Then she appeared, Karina. Young, with no brakes. With her, he suddenly remembered he was human. But that very night, when they first stayed alone together, he dreamed of the marsh and the wife in the black scarf. She stood by the same birches where he had first met her, right at the water's edge, and spoke softly, the way one speaks who will be heard regardless.
You broke your vow, Nikolai. A husband cannot have two wives.
He woke in an icy sweat and instantly smelled it. Rotten, sweet, meaty. He lifted the blanket. The skin on his leg had turned gray, cracked. Something was moving under it. In the morning, worse. After that, worse still. He washed, bandaged, cut away dead shreds with a knife. It didn't help. Doctors found nothing. The wounds wouldn't close. The rot crept upward. And every night a whisper breathed into his ear.
Meat for meat. A husband for a wife.
He changed apartments and names, but the smell moved with him. His things grew a tacky film, as if handled by greasy fingers. The tap water clouded. Flies buzzed in the wardrobe, though everything was shut. Wherever he showed up, within a couple of days, the neighbors began to complain of a corpse reek. The last time he was seen was at a cheap seaside motel. The landlady called the manager. The corridor stank like a morgue. When they forced the door, no one was inside. On the floor, a puddle of cloudy liquid, drawing oily gleams toward the drain. And a swarm of flies clung to a chunk of rotten pork on the sheets. Officially, missing. Unofficially, ever since then, on certain nights, a hoarse whisper is heard on the beach. I have paid. That is the legend. And now, what I saw. Second night, I went back to the water. The swell grew heavier. The sand chafed underfoot. I hit record and stood there. First, the wind. Then, lapping. Then, that same cough from under the water. Closer this time. Then a bubble, a dull pop, and the smell. Sweet, meaty, metallic, like from a rusty faucet. Out along the far bar in the break's white seam, a lump of meat kept bobbing. White fibers trailed from it, and the waves seemed to slide away from it as from a heavy stone. I took a step, and the sand beneath me gave. Underfoot, it turned viscous and deeper, as if the bottom had sighed and pulled down. I turned back and left. I slept in my car by the highway. In the morning, a thin, greasy film lay on the inside of the windshield. On the third day, I reached an abandoned wing of a motel by the ruins. Black, greasy streaks clung to the walls like frozen candles. On the tile by the stairs, flattened handprints, as if someone had crawled up on all fours, leaving marks. The landlady, seeing them, slid the bolt shut and lowered her eyes.
They say he didn't go into the sea. He lives somewhere out on the edge of town. Names change. The smell doesn't. We don't open our windows at night.
After that night, others began to disappear. First, his two cronies vanished, along with Karina. Two guys from the site went for a nighttime walk on the beach and never came back. All they found was a phone, face down, and a dark strip of footprints in the ebb. A girl who jogged at dawn didn't show up for work. On the bench, there was only a slick smear, like from a wet palm. A night fisherman cast his net along the blackening edge. The boat washed up empty in the morning, bright greasy streaks along the gunnel. In my car, above the driver's seat, moist half-moons appeared, handprints, as if someone had braced themselves there. In the houses nearer the beach, the tap water ran cloudy, like broth. And one last thing. In this town, don't walk on wet sand where it's darker and where even at night the flies keep circling. The bottom breathes there. Underfoot, it suddenly becomes deeper and pulls you down, like into warm broth. At dawn, I started the car, wiped the thin, greasy film off the inside of the windshield, and drove toward the airport. I've never come back. If you hear coughing from the water, don't turn around. Walk toward the light. Otherwise, your footprints will settle beside the others.
Wonder
shadows where whispers dwell, through silence a tale of a mountain fell. Nikolai's riches, but these comes with a price. Lost in the brine where the ghostly tides rise. The air thick with secrets, sound whispers of fate. Sand slips beneath, dark waters await.